I am the monster, rah rah rah. I am the monster, rah rah rah. I am the monster, I am the monster, I am the monster, rah rah rah.
Hello, and welcome back for part 3 of my analysis and reaction to Epic the Musical. I'm Spencer Penrod, and I am a world builder. I make worlds for stories, for D&D campaigns, things like that. I've been doing it for years, and I'm taking the chance to use those skills I've developed and analyze what we see in pieces of media. Today we're looking at the Ocean Saga of Epic the Musical. We've previously looked at the Troy and Cyclops saga. And yeah, I'm excited to get back into it to see where we go. Last time we saw Odysseus and his crew dealing with the Cyclops, stealing some food, getting out of there, and setting the stage to make it easier to have vengeance put upon them. So let's see if it all comes back to bite Odysseus in the butt, I guess, and see if we learn anything more about the gods and the world and what's going on. Let's just jump right back into it. We only see one ship now. I'm assuming that's just a limitation of the animatic, because I know a lot of their men died, but they had 600 in the crew, and I think they still have most of them, so we should be seeing more. The fact that we're not means they were either left behind or lost out in the storm, or it's just something to make it easier to animate. But not too much to say so far. Oh, there's the other ships.
These waves and tides have grown in strength and size. Is it nature or divine or a blessing in disguise?
Okay, so immediately we have him questioning whether this is a normal storm or a divine one. We don't really have any knowledge of why it would be divine. I know that there's some knowledge that we can take from the Odyssey about why that would be the case, but nothing that we've seen in the musical so far has indicated why they would be subject to a divine storm yet. So I wonder if they'll get to that.
Our homes inside, this storm's our final fight. There's no time to die. Comrades, sir, brace for a storm.
Okay, so it's weird for him to say, is this a blessing in disguise because we're almost home? This is our final fight? It almost makes it sound like he's looking forward to the story of their return, and he's like, it wouldn't narratively be satisfying if we didn't have a final fight, so isn't it kind of a blessing that we have one? Which he's seemed pretty dramatic to me so far. Like he cares for drama, so that would fit in line with what he's shown me. Other than that, I'm not sure why a giant storm could be considered a blessing. The other thing I noticed is that they unfurled the sails. I am far from an expert about like sea navigation, especially during storms, but from what I understood, you're supposed to put the sails away because the winds get so crazy they could break the masts and rip the sails if they're out. So the fact that they are saying brace for a storm and unfurling the sails makes me think that maybe some of that crazy workmanship we've seen in the weapons that they've got applies to the boats as well, and that they're kind of supernaturally durable, able to withstand and navigate through a storm.
The likes of which we've never seen before. Brace for a storm. With hope so close, we must keep pushing forward.
So he also talks about, with home so close, we must keep pushing forth. It sounds like he's not willing to just wait out the storm. That tells us that this storm has either been going on for a much longer time than we've seen in the animatic, and that he's impatient to get out of it, that it's much more dangerous and they need to get to a port, or that he's just really impatient, which I wouldn't blame him for. He's been gone for 10 years. That's ages, especially with no communication back home. But it is kind of an irresponsible decision if that's his only motivation. So hopefully the Odysseus we've seen isn't the kind to make that kind of a rash decision, I would think. It makes me lean more towards one of those other options. And if I had to guess, I'd say the storm is dangerous enough that they feel like they need to take shelter. And with home being so close, that's the nearest port, and they want to get there to be protected. Although I also think that in storms, don't they generally send boats out of the ports so that they don't just crash into them? Maybe I'm misremembering that, but I think it's true. In which case, it would be weird for him to go seek shelter at a port, because he wouldn't really be sheltered there anyway. Yeah, I don't know.
Towards the island, but avoid the crashing waves. Tread where the tide is flat, and then you will be safe. Captain, we will capsize with these waves. Our fleet will fail. Have them follow my ship, all ensure that we prevail.
So they are big ships that these guys are using, but he's talking about navigating them like they're really easy to maneuver. I'm not the biggest expert on seafaring, but I don't think you can normally just like avoid waves as they happen with something this big. So that means that this ship has some kind of power other than the wind driving it forward, or it means that it's otherwise more maneuverable than we would think. Did they have the oars out? Let me check. Yeah, they did have the oars out. So I guess they are saying that between the oar power and the ship's craftsmanship, it's maneuverable enough to dodge waves. That's really, really impressive for old ships, from what I understand. Also, I need to start getting in the habit of resuming the playback a few seconds back so that I don't miss lyrics. I've apparently missed a few important ones so far.
Follow my ship, all ensure that we prevail. We're taking too much damage to survive. We'll beat the storm. At this rate, we won't make it out alive. Help to boat.
Okay, floating island. That's super cool. I want to learn more about that. I don't know if there's any implications for it yet, other than it seems to be like the clouds aren't covering it. They're parting to show it. So maybe it's got some influence over the weather. At the very least, it's not being influenced by the wind of this storm, which, depending on the size of it, it's unclear from this scale. It would make sense. Like, you're not going to see a mountain pushed around by winds. But it is notable. It means it's at least very, very sizable and massive to be able to resist crazy winds like we're seeing. Yeah, I want to learn more about it.
An island in the sky. You really just grab the harpoons, as many as you can find. What do you have in mind? We're gonna shoot for the sky. What?
Are they trying to use it like an anchor with harpoons? That seems like it can't possibly work out well. So if that's the case, though, it would mean their ropes and harpoons are also just as strong as the other craftsmanship we've seen to be able to hold them in place. I don't think harpoons are meant to like anchor ships. If that's not what they're doing, then I have no idea. I'm curious to see.
Everyone
Okay, they're not going to tell us why right now. The strings are definitely way too thin to support a ship, though. So that can't be why they were doing it. Maybe he wants to climb up to it to escape the storm? They'd have to abandon their boats to do that, though, which doesn't seem like the best idea. Yeah, hopefully the next animatic tells us more. It's also interesting, though. It looked like that island was above the clouds. Maybe it wasn't. It was a little hard to tell from the perspective of that shot. But either what we're seeing is insane superhuman strength to be able to throw harpoons above the clouds, or an island that's floating in the sky but not very high. I have no idea how far a person can normally throw a harpoon into the sky, but I can't imagine it's that high, like a couple stories maybe for someone really strong. You're fighting against gravity to do that. So if it's only hovering like 20, 30, 40 feet off the water, that's a lot more impressive that it's withstanding the storm, and tells us that it's probably not a normal island. I mean, I guess we knew that because it's floating as well. But like the structure of the island itself is not normal to be able to withstand things, no problem. Yeah, let's see if we get any more details going forward, I guess.
Please don't tell me you're about to do what I think you'll do. You've heard the legends of the island in the sky. This proves they're true. We're in the home of the wind god. We don't know for...
Okay, so they're implying that the island is the home of the wind god, right? And it sounds like he's planning to climb up to go talk with them. So he was just wanting them to throw the harpoons to get there. That means that when we saw the storm clear in the last one, it wasn't just clearing to show us that as part of the animatic, but it was probably actually the influence of the wind god blowing away the storm to just kind of get out of his face, which, as we're seeing in this animatic, the storm is clearing more. With speculation that that storm was divine, I wonder if we're witnessing basically a conflict between the god of storms or the sea or something and the god of the winds.
For sure. How many floating islands have you seen before? This is the home of the wind god. And what's your plan? I'm gonna climb to the top and ask him for a hand. You could be caught off guard and lose your life, or piss off this god and infuse us with strife. Don't forget how dangerous the gods are. Have faith, friend, we've come this far. Yes.
Okay, so don't forget how dangerous the gods are is an interesting line, because so far we've seen one god, probably Zeus, but it didn't actually tell us, telling Odysseus to go kill a baby, and maybe having some idea of fate in general. We've seen Athena training Odysseus, and generally being a good warrior and strategist, but not particularly dangerous, like not above what a really skilled warrior would be. The only other look at the gods we've had is the implication that that storm came from one, but that wasn't confirmed. So this is really the first moment where we're hearing or seeing that gods can be like notably dangerous and worthy of fear or respect for that, which makes sense. I mean, you don't generally think of gods as someone weak or someone that you don't have to fear, but it's nice to get the confirmation of that at least, and interesting to see Odysseus not really caring about the danger that the gods represent, and more interested in the help that they can provide, and kind of once again trusting in himself above what normal people would think for the gods. He's not worried about the normal perception that the gods are dangerous or something to be feared. He's like, I'm just going to win this god over and get their help because I'm me. So really kind of egotistical, but also just very much trusting in himself over common sense, it seems like.
Dangerous, the gods are.
Have faith, friend, we've come this far.
Yes, but how much longer till your luck runs out? How much longer till the show goes south? How much longer till we all fall down? You rely on wit and people die on it. Whoa.
I still believe in goodness. I still believe that we could be kind. Lead from the heart and see what starts.
And what will we do when it tears us apart?
So he's still kind of trying to live up to the memory of Polites, it seems like, where it seemed like he was so skeptical of looking at the world and seeing inherent goodness. But after his friend died, he's like, I need to carry on that mentality. It's weird to see that clashing with his cynicism and his wit and kind of winning out. Like he's forgotten how dangerous the world can be, almost. We've only seen a little bit and some implications that things are a lot scarier under the surface than they seem up close. But yeah, it's just weird to see that he's had such a big shift. I guess it shows us how much he really cared for Polites. But it's still strange to see him resisting this cynical view of the world when so far everything seems to hint that that was a very practical and realistic mindset for him to have.
Where is this coming from, my friend?
I just don't want to see another life end. You're like the brother I could never do without.
And suddenly you doubt that I could figure this out.
Captain, how much longer till your luck runs out? How much longer till the show goes south? How much longer till we all fall down? You rely on wit and people die on it. Whoa, how much longer till the snake breaks free? How
much longer till the snake breaks free? I haven't heard that saying before. I don't know if it's referencing something that I'm not aware of, but it definitely sounds like an idiom based on mythology or a story or something. Especially with it zooming in on a bag. Maybe the implication is like you can bag a snake, but it'll break free and be dangerous. I don't know. It's an interesting turn of phrase. Maybe I'm just showing my ignorance here and it's something common, but I've never heard it, and it's got interesting implications for the beliefs of these people. Let's go back a little bit.
Whoa, how much longer till the snake breaks free? How much longer till your great day sees? How much longer till your strength takes leave? You rely on wit and people die on it. Whoa.
Thank you for the concern, but brother, I can assure you, our journey is almost done. I understand that we're tired, I understand that we're phased, but don't forget how much we've already faced. I took 600 men to war and not one of them died there.
That is insane. 10 years, we knew he had 600 people, but I assumed that was left after what happened for 10 years. But he's saying that he was such a good commander that he lost none of his men. That's not even being a good commander at that point. That's like something else was going on. I know it was a siege, so they probably weren't like regularly battling out on open fields or things like that. It was probably a lot more waiting around and taking out supplies and smaller skirmishes. So it'd be relatively easy to keep casualties low in that kind of a war compared to something like fighting out in the trenches. But still, that's really, really impressive. A huge mark of his skill and wit and how he leads people.
In case you needed a reminder, if you'd like to speak more, let me pull you aside then. I need to talk to you in private. I can't have you planting seeds of doubt. I can't have you disagreeing each route. I need you to always be devout and comply with this, or we'll all die in this. Okay.
Okay.
That's really weird to me. Like, obviously, the animatic has been focusing on the other crew around and showing off their reactions. So it makes sense that Odysseus would pick up on that and be like, you can't be basically ruining morale by questioning my decision. But it's also weird that it doesn't sound like he's saying, don't question me in front of our men. He's saying, don't question me. He's already shown a lot of faith in himself throughout this song and throughout all of these animatics and songs. But to say to his second in command that you can't question what I'm doing ever, that seems really weird to me. Like, he seems smart enough to know that he can't possibly think of everything and that having an outside perspective would help. But it sounds like that's not how he thinks. He does think that he can think of everything and all of the implications and be safe. So he's putting his trust in himself again over what I imagine he would counsel anyone else to do, which is listen to those around you and their doubts. He isn't stupid. So it's a bit of a weird thing. And I guess showing that as wise as he is and as smart and witty and clever as he is, his pride wins out. And he does make stupid decisions because of that, which makes sense because we saw him last episode. We saw him calling out to the Cyclops and saying his name, even though that was just an objectively stupid decision. And we've seen him doing some things like climbing up the wall to go all Attack on Titan on the Cyclops, which is not really the move of a commander or even necessarily a good move for a fighter. It's just kind of something he wanted to do for his own pride, or telling off gods. Like, he's done a lot of things that show that he's really prideful. But it's always kind of been tempered by his wit and wisdom and cleverness. So this is really, I think, the first moment where there's nothing emotional going on, no outside forces changing how he would react, but it shows that he is choosing to place his value in himself above everything else, even his own intellect, which is, well, interesting. I say that a lot. I need to find something else to say beyond this is interesting, but it is. And often I don't have much more to say than that, pointing out something cool.
Thank you.
All right, that was an interesting one, but it didn't have a lot for us to look at in terms of world building. Oh, don't play the music. Yeah, not a lot to look at in terms of world building because it was mostly just like questioning Odysseus's plan. He didn't get to go out and do stuff. But I'm excited to see what's on that island. It sounds like that's going to have a lot for us to look at.
Great wind god Aeolus, I don't know if you know this, but our path to home is blocked by an impenetrable storm.
Okay, so it's weird for him to call it an impenetrable storm when he was just a couple songs ago dead set on pushing through it. So he must have had his mind changed since then, or is stretching the truth a bit to get some help from this god. It's also interesting seeing all the little decorations here. This looks like a shrine. So I don't know if there are other people here that maintain this to the god, or if it's showing that the god is so caught up about appearances that he's decorating and maintaining his own shrine to himself in kind of an isolated floating island in the middle of the sea. Either way is interesting, but they obviously imply different things. So I'm interested to see if we find out which is true.
I ask for your
Let me...
impenetrable storm. I ask for your assistance so we at last can go the distance. Can you cast the perfect winds for us and aid our journey home?
Ha ha ha! I am the wind, twisting and turning. I give the fire enough to stay burning. Let's.
Okay. So she, I think, seems to be... I thought it was god of wind. Maybe it's a child. Maybe I'm misremembering. Either way, the god here seems to be a lot more about the embodiment of something rather than someone like Athena who had authority over something. Like, she wasn't literally war or wisdom. She was someone who was kind of at the pinnacle of both, from what I understood. Whereas this god seems like they are presenting themselves as literally being the wind, the air. And from, if we assume that those eyes were the god, then it makes sense to say that we saw them floating around and kind of acting like the wind before we ever saw their person.
Play a game.
A game?
Let's...
Burning. I give the fire enough to stay burning. Let's play a game.
A game?
That's what I'm serving, and if you win, you will get what you're yearning.
Deal.
Take a look right here at this bag. It has the winds of the storm all trapped.
It has the winds of the storm all trapped in the bag. Okay, obviously, first of all, there's some god shit going on, making that possible, because that doesn't make sense from like a physical standpoint at all. But it makes me wonder, if the winds can be trapped and contained in something so small, then why would... It just is interesting because it means that the winds can't regenerate or replace themselves. That is almost like it's trapping the concept or the idea of there being winds in a certain area or a certain storm, rather than the physical winds themselves. Because you would think if you took out, say, a cubic meter of wind from an area, that the wind around it would fill it in and replace it. And if there was a storm, it would constantly be generating new wind. But if all of the winds from the storm are trapped, that means that it's unable to do that. So not only has he been given the bag that has all of the wind presumably stuck inside of it, but it's preventing the formation of new wind and kind of crippling the storm, which means that this god of the wind isn't just able to grab like physical air or wind, but is able to like bind the authority to allow new wind to be created into an object.
All you gotta do is nag. It has the winds of the storm all trapped. All you gotta do is not open this bag.
Sounds too easy, what's the catch?
Ha ha ha. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Never really know who you can trust.
Those things are adorable. But it also, I was talking before about who's maintaining the shrine. It looks like it's probably these things. And we don't know that for sure, but whatever they are, seem to be around and acting in a supporting role towards the god. So it would make sense that they also take care of miscellaneous tasks. It's also kind of a boring game to say, just don't open this. So boring in the sense that, like, when you think of like a playful god who's like, let's play a game, you tend to think of someone who is there for immediate gratification, and that's why they want to play a game. But this is a long-term thing. This is about saying, don't open this, keep it with you until you get home, and you'll be fine. And if you open it, then you're screwed. But that's such a delayed gratification thing that it kind of clashes with the idea of like a playful trickster god who just wants that immediate gratification. So it's showing a lot more depth of character and like who they are than I would typically expect from this kind of a being.
If they wanna get the bag open, you gotta say no, sir. Sometimes killing is a must. What? 'Cause the end always justifies the means. Friends turn to foes in rivalry, so keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Never really know who you can trust. Never really know who you can trust.
Huh, interesting. I don't want to comment on this too much because it's outside of like typical world building stuff that I'm focusing on, but it's just such a happy little song for such an ominous message, especially contrasting to the kind of open-heartedness that Odysseus has been adopting so far. He wants to see the good in everything and everyone right now, and this happy little tune from a happy little god is like, actually, you can't trust anyone, and your friends are going to become enemies, and watch out. So I guess that shows that this god of wind is less about the immediate gratification, like we noticed earlier, and more about, like, it's not about the bag to them. It's about seeing how this ominous message affects Odysseus and how he acts and how he views those around him. And how they view him, and that it's probably the god is probably in it for the drama being created among these people rather than any particular outcome with the bag itself.
Really know who you can trust. Really know who you can trust.
Captain, what's happening? What's trapped in that bag?
Something dangerous, friends, we mustn't lag.
It's treasure.
What?
Bye-bye.
Open the bag. Let's see what you got.
No, do not! Everybody listen closely. See how this bag is closed? That's how it's supposed to be. This bag has the storm inside. We cannot let the treasure rumor fly.
We'll try.
Keep your friends close.
Okay, interesting. Once again, we see her little helpers coming down and saying it's treasure to spread this idea that the captain is holding something back from his men, and kind of plant seeds of doubt, which just again shows this game isn't about the bag. It's about the drama that it creates with the crew. And it's interesting to see that they're willing to kind of go out on the limb and spread their own messages to influence that drama.
Died. We cannot let the treasure rumor fly.
We'll try.
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Never really know who you can trust.
Now I wanna get the bag open so they can have closure.
Sometimes seeking is a must.
'Cause the end always justifies the means.
Everything's changed since polity, so
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
never really know who you can trust.
They're saying everything has changed since Polites, and now we don't know who we can trust. So I guess they're singing the same thing in Odysseus that we've noticed, that he's really changed since his friend died, and they don't know how that affects him. So before, where we've seen almost reverential treatment of him and blind faith, now they're like, he's changed so much that maybe our faith isn't as well placed. And especially what I'm noticing here is that the rumor of treasure came from the gods, whereas Odysseus is insisting that it's not. And so what it comes down to is pitting the gods against Odysseus again and seeing where people put their faith, whether that's in their captain or in their gods. And the crew that we've seen so far seems like they would put their trust in Odysseus over the gods. And that seems to be what Odysseus would do, obviously. He trusted himself over the gods. But as their journey gets closer to being over, then we see that the gods, the power they hold, the authority they hold, seems to be worming its way into the hearts of the crew. And they're saying, well, we know that the gods are a certain way and they don't change, but our captain has changed. So even if we normally trusted him above the gods, can we still do that when we know exactly how the gods will be and we don't know exactly how our captain will be? That's kind of what I'm getting from it, at least.
For 9 days I've stayed wide awake, trying to make it home with no storm or tidal wave. I remain unopposed, the bag is still closed, and I'm getting closer to you.
Okay, so he stayed awake for 9 days to do this. First of all, showing that he doesn't trust his crew, which, based on the looks we've seen and how they've been talking, kind of makes sense. But also shows, again, that he's kind of superhuman. He's not like overtly crazy or anything, but staying awake for 9 days is wild. Like, people have done that, I think, in real life. I think a couple weeks is the record, if I remember right. But like 9 days is well beyond where a normal person should be able to stay awake. He doesn't seem fine, but the fact that he can do that at all is a testament to his better than normal structure, builds, physique. That's the word. So interesting seeing more hints towards that.
I can't wait to make some new memories. Time for me to be the father I never was. Just keep your eyes open. Why are my eyes and my heart and my soul so heavy? Just keep your eyes open. I keep on trying to embrace you both. Why won't you let me? Just keep your eyes open. So much has changed, but I'm the same. Yes, I'm the same. Just keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open.
Wake up. Wake up! Odysseus, they're opening the bag! Wake up!
Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Never really know who you can trust.
Where's the storm taking?
Okay, so not only has this bag actually contained the storm, but it seems to contain, like, a vengefulness almost from the god of the wind, because if a crazy storm opened up that close to home, that would be bad, but it wouldn't necessarily blow them off course, even if it was pretty strong, or at least not very far off course, because like home was within sight. But they got specifically targeted by a blast of air to blow them far away. So it wasn't necessarily that the bag contained the storm that was the problem, but that losing that game he made with the god of the wind meant that the god could kind of take vengeance for that, or vengeance is probably the wrong word, but kind of be vindictive almost and make him suffer for that loss, rather than just the normal consequences that would have come.
I said to keep the bag.
Where's the storm taking us?
I said to keep the bag closed, but you weren't compliant. If I had to guess, you're headed to the land of the giants.
Weird for the god to say that they had to guess where they were going when they're literally controlling the wind. Also weird that they still kept up their sails to let the wind push them away. It feels like they could have mitigated a lot of the disaster here by not letting the wind have so much influence over them. But maybe there's a reason they can't. Also, the sails here took like a direct blast from the wind god and were totally fine. So once again, hinting that there's some crazy construction going on.
Help me close the bag!
But sir, it's too late!
We can save whatever wind is left to use another day! Come on!
That makes me wonder, save whatever wind is left to use another day. Obviously, there's some use to stopping the storm to be more safe, but he's interested in basically getting a magic item here. And that's confusing because how would he use it if the only thing it does is let a storm loose? Like, all that could do is disadvantage him. It seems like it also came with a pretty powerful blast of air, but he didn't control that. It was just something that happened. So I don't see why he would think there's a usefulness to this bag, beyond stopping the storm, which was its explicit purpose. I'm interested to see if that's hinting towards anything, or if it was just a weird line.
Oh, Odysseus of Ithaca!
Do you know who I am?
Huh, interesting. No clue who that was or what that was about, but I'm guessing we're going to find out in the next song. And this is the last one we're looking at today, the last part of the Ocean Saga. Okay, Poseidon, I guess, is the one who called out to him, based on the choir. Why is he in the land of the giants, I wonder? Poseidon is the god of the sea, right? I wonder if they'll tell us so that I'm not just guessing. It seems like he would be more someone they would have encountered in the storm or the open water than here at the land of the giants. I like him being a giant horse. I have had it pointed out to me multiple times that Poseidon is, was he the god of horses, or just the horse was like a symbol of him, something like that. So that makes sense. Here, I would normally have no idea what's going on. I mean, it shows, obviously, like horses have to be associated with him if they're chanting Poseidon as a giant horse rises up out of the water. But it's a little bit of a confusing shot without that bit of knowledge.
Poseidon. In all my years of living, it isn't very often that I get pissed off. I try to chill with the waves, but damn, you crossed the line.
Okay, so he has crossed the line. Obviously, he's going to tell us why. But just from what we've seen so far, we can put together a couple of guesses. I am cheating a little bit with outside knowledge because I can't get rid of it. But there are some subtle hints. So I don't know if I'm reading too much into it. But they're at the land of the giants, where Poseidon seems to reside. If we assume that giants are someone that he's associated with, then Cyclopses aren't too far away from that, because they are also basically giant men. And if we assume that he's associated with Cyclopses, then we can assume that he's pissed about Polyphemus, because they definitely did something there. We also know that he's associated with horses because he rose up as a giant horse. And at the very beginning, we see the Trojan horse being used to take out Troy. So it's possible that he took some exception to them using his symbol for something so deceptive. Those are my guesses, and we will listen to him and see if he spells anything out for us.
I've been so gracious, and yet you hurt the son of mine. That's right, the Cyclops you made blind is mine.
Okay, so yeah, the Cyclops was definitely the reason here. Which, I mean, not that Odysseus had any reason to know that, but this seems like if we assume the gods can't see everything, which I think is reasonable given what we've seen of Athena, she's the one we've had the most interaction with so far, then that means that him giving his name to Polyphemus was definitely a bad idea that caused this moment to happen. Or we could assume that he does have knowledge of everything and then it wouldn't have mattered. But that doesn't seem as supported. I also want to point out that his arm turned into water when he grabbed Odysseus here. Like, it's like this water arm, like he's water bending his flesh almost. Showing that he's one of these gods like the god of the wind, where he's very much embodying a concept rather than just being kind of at the pinnacle of it.
Is mine. No. I'm left without a choice and without a doubt. Yes, the back of wolves are swimming with the shark now. I gotta make you bleed. I need to see you drown. But before you go, I need to make you learn how ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves.
Ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves, he says. And he's trying to make him learn that. That seems to be in line with what Athena was trying to tell him, where she's like, don't you dare spare this Cyclops. It's going to come back to bite you in the butt. And Odysseus was like, I can't be that ruthless. I need to show mercy. Now, Poseidon seems to be hammering in that lesson that you chose mercy for your enemy instead of yourself. You should have been ruthless. And what I'm doing now is ruthlessness because I'm being merciful towards myself. Showing that, at least in the view of the gods, that the world works this way. That you need to be ruthless to kind of drive the wheel forward and set the path for your own life. Yeah.
You are the worst kind of good, 'cause you're not even great.
Okay, we see Poseidon is gigantic here, wearing the sea like a toga. Super cool imagery, but also showing, this is definitely the most impressive showing that a god has had so far. The god of the winds was maybe more impressive technically, being able to stop an entire storm and bag it up, but it wasn't very flashy. Whereas this, he's literally stepping on these ships like they're toys and kicking them around and controlling the sea just to garb him. Like, this is terrifying. We heard a couple songs ago that the gods were dangerous, and this is really the first we're seeing of exactly how dangerous they can be when you piss them off.
Greek who rigs the false.
Let's
A Greek who rigs the false righteousness, that's what I hate. 'Cause you fight to save lives, but won't kill and don't get the job done.
That's really interesting. So he fights to save lives, but he won't kill and get the job done. That's what he views as righteousness. It's not fighting to save lives. That isn't righteous. But killing, finishing the job, that is righteousness. It sounds like he would have been less pissed if you killed Polyphemus than if he let him live. Once again, really showing that this worldview that Polites had and that Odysseus has since adopted is really just out of line with how the world works, at least according to these higher powers.
I mean, you totally could have avoided all this had you just killed my son. But no, you are far too nice. Mercy has a price. It's the final crack, we're about to break the ice now. You reveal your name, then you let him live. Unlike you, I've got no mercy left to give. Cause ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. Ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. Ourselves. And now it is finally time to say goodbye. Today you die, unless of course you apologize for my son's pain and all his cries.
Okay, this is really interesting because it's showing that we've seen throughout these animatics that Odysseus puts his pride in himself above everything. His wit, his beliefs, the gods, his people, everything falls second to that. And yet here he is bowing his head, like as supplicating as possible, asking for forgiveness for what he's done. When what he's done, the thing that pissed off Poseidon was show mercy. It sounds like that is what pissed him off so much. Not even maiming his son, not hurting him. He would have been fine if he killed his son, but the fact that he let him live, that's what makes Poseidon so mad. And so here he is saying, my view was wrong. My actions were wrong. Please forgive me. That's so outside of his character. Because he's really maybe finally recognizing the threat that these gods pose, recognizing how powerless he is. And he's not so prideful that he's unwilling to bend when he realizes that he's this outclassed. So that tells us a lot about him, and that he does genuinely care about these people who put him in this situation by opening the bag against his commands, that he's willing to give up what seems to be most important to him.
Poseidon, we meant no harm. We only hurt him to disarm him. We took no pleasure in his pain. We only wanted to escape.
Of course, then we see his apology is full of lies, because he was definitely taking pleasure. He was bragging about the pain he was causing. So yes, he's bowing his head here, but he's still not giving up his pride. So I was wrong. His pride is still more important than everything else.
The line between naivety and hopefulness is almost invisible, so close your heart. The world is dark and ruthlessness is die.
It's unclear here whether Poseidon saw through those lies and is punishing him because of that, or whether he's just wanting to taunt out Odysseus into giving up his pride before he kills him. The fact that he goes on to talk more about ruthlessness makes me think it's the second one, but I'm sure the lies definitely didn't help.
What have you done? When does a ripple become a tidal wave?
43 left under your command.
When does a man become a monster?
I am your darkest moment. The monster that always draws near. Any last words?
All I gotta do is open this bag.
What?
He was so happy there. Okay. I'm sorry. That doesn't really have anything to do with anything. It was just such a funny reaction there. He killed off almost all of them. 43 men left, he said. And it sounds like he only spared them to drive in that suffering before killing him again. This is the foreshadowing we got with him wanting to save the bag, I guess, that he was going to now use it to escape. So yeah, it's nice that we're getting a payoff for that so quick.
Remember me.
All right, and that's it. All I've got to say there about the end is that it once again drives home the point that these gods are not all powerful. If the wind was able to keep him away from Poseidon while still on the sea, it means Poseidon can't be everywhere. He can't even travel very fast. He's definitely got limits. And those limits are what were able to be exploited to let Odysseus get away. So I guess it's still showing that his pride and his intellect are coming out on top of even gods, that even though they're really powerful, really dangerous, they're like, we saw what Poseidon did. He wiped everyone out in moments. Despite all of that, Odysseus keeps believing he can outsmart them, he can outmaneuver them, and he is kind of right. It was at a really big cost to his men, but he got out and he saved some of them. So I wonder what that's going to do for him in the future and how the gods view him, because it seems like he is definitely being set up as a contender, someone who can compete with the gods and challenge their authority. But yeah, that's all I had for today. I'll be back to react to the next saga tomorrow, probably. Thank you for joining me and for your interest in the series and all your comments and support. It's really encouraging. I will see you next time.